At first, it looked like another quiet night in a peaceful college town. No alarms, no warnings, no sign that within hours something so brutal would happen that it would shake an entire nation. But by morning, everything had changed. 4 young lives were gone, and a mystery had begun that would haunt investigators, families, and millions of people watching from afar. This is the story of one of the most disturbing and closely followed criminal cases in recent years, and how it was finally solved. In November 2022, the town of Moscow, Idaho, was known for one thing: safety. It was the kind of place where doors were often left unlocked, where students walked home late at night without fear, and where crime felt distant. That illusion shattered when police responded to a call that would become the center of global attention. Inside a house near the University of Idaho campus, 4 students were found brutally murdered. Their names were Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. They were young, full of life, and had their futures ahead of them. What happened to them was not just shocking, it was deeply unsettling. There were no immediate suspects, no clear motive. And even more disturbing, there were 2 other roommates in the house who survived, unharmed. That detail alone left investigators and the public asking the same chilling question: how could something so violent happen, and yet go unnoticed by those just rooms away? As news spread, the case exploded across media platforms. People began speculating, analyzing every detail, every rumor, every possibility. But behind the noise, investigators were quietly building something much more powerful than speculation. They were building a case. In the early days, the lack of information created fear. Students left town, parents worried. Social media was filled with theories, many of them wrong, some dangerously misleading. Police urged patience, but as days turned into weeks, pressure grew. Then came one of the first major clues: surveillance footage. A white sedan had been spotted near the house around the time of the murders. At first, it was just a vehicle of interest, but slowly it became something more. Investigators tracked its movements, traced possible routes, and began narrowing down who might have been inside. At the same time, forensic teams were working inside the house. Among the chaos, they found something crucial: DNA evidence. It was a small detail, almost invisible to the untrained eye, but it would eventually become the key to unlocking the entire case. Now here is where things take a turn. Instead of rushing to make an arrest, investigators took a different approach. They went deep. They used advanced forensic genealogy techniques, something that has only recently become a powerful tool in criminal investigations. By analyzing DNA and comparing it to public databases, they were not just looking for a match, they were building a family tree. And slowly, that tree led them to a name: Brian Koberger. At the time, he was a PhD student studying criminology. That detail alone stunned people. Someone studying crime, possibly committing one of the most horrifying crimes in recent memory. It felt like something out of a movie, but this was real. Koberger was not immediately arrested. Instead, investigators began watching him, quietly, carefully. They tracked his movements, gathered more evidence, and waited for the right moment. Then came another breakthrough. Phone records. Investigators discovered that Koberger's phone had been in the area of the victim's house multiple times before the murders. This was not a coincidence. It suggested something much darker: planning, surveillance, and possibly obsession. And on the night of the murders, his phone suddenly stopped transmitting data, only to come back online later. To investigators, this was not random. It looked like someone trying to hide their movements. But even with all this, they needed something stronger. So they followed him across the country. Koberger had returned to Pennsylvania, where he was eventually taken into custody. But what made this arrest even more shocking was what happened next. Authorities collected trash from his family home. Inside that trash, they found DNA. When they tested it, it matched the DNA found at the crime scene. That was the moment everything changed. The suspect was no longer just a theory. He was real, and the case was moving toward resolution. But solving a case is not the same as understanding it. As more details came out, the picture became even more disturbing. Kohberger had studied criminal behavior. He understood how investigations worked. He knew what evidence could be left behind. And yet, something went wrong. One mistake. One trace. That was all it took. And now, here is the part that keeps people thinking long after the headlines fade. Why? There was no clear connection between Kohberger and the victims. No known relationship, no obvious motive. That absence of explanation made the crime even more chilling. It suggested randomness, or something deeply personal that had not yet been revealed. During the legal proceedings, prosecutors built a case based on digital evidence, DNA, surveillance footage, and behavioral patterns. Defense teams pushed back, questioning timelines, evidence handling, and interpretations. The courtroom became a battleground of logic, science, and human emotion. Families of the victims sat through every detail, every argument, every piece of evidence. For them, this was not just a case. It was their reality. And for the public, it was a reminder of something uncomfortable. Danger does not always come with warning signs. Now think about this for a moment. A person studying crime, possibly planning something like this, living a seemingly normal life, attending classes, interacting with people. And all the while, something darker building beneath the surface. It challenges the way people think about safety, about who can be trusted, about how well we truly know the people around us. As the case moved toward resolution, one thing became clear. Modern investigation techniques played a massive role. Without DNA databases, digital tracking, and coordinated law enforcement efforts, this case might have remained unsolved for years, or even forever. But it did not. It was solved. And yet, even with a suspect in custody, even with evidence presented, even with a legal process unfolding, the emotional weight of what happened does not disappear. 4 lives were lost. Families were changed forever. A community was shaken to its core. And cases like this leave behind more than just answers. They leave questions. Could it have been prevented? Were there signs that were missed? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, how many people like this exist, unnoticed, blending into everyday life? This case also revealed something about the power of collective attention. Millions of people followed every update, every clue, every development. Some helped bring attention. Others spread misinformation. It showed both the strength and the danger of public involvement in real investigations. Because while the world was watching, real investigators were working, piece by piece, building something that could stand in court. And that is what ultimately matters. Evidence. Not theories, not guesses, not viral posts. Evidence. Now here is something that makes this story even more intense. In many crimes, there is chaos, mistakes everywhere. But in this case, there were signs of planning, intent, awareness. That level of control makes the crime feel even colder, even more calculated. And yet, despite all of that, it's still unraveled. Because no matter how carefully something is planned, reality is unpredictable. One overlooked detail can bring everything down. And in this case, it did. As the legal process continues to unfold, the story is not just about what happened. It is about what it reveals, about the evolution of crime, about the evolution of investigation, and about the fragile line between normal life and something unthinkable. So the next time you hear about a case like this, remember, behind every headline, there is a deeper story, one that involves real people, real pain, and real consequences. And sometimes the most shocking part is not how the crime happened, but how close it was to going unnoticed. Because in a quiet town, on what seemed like an ordinary night, something extraordinary and horrifying took place. And for a while, no one knew who was responsible, until they did. And when they finally uncovered the truth, it was not just shocking, it was chilling, because it proved that even in a world filled with technology, awareness, and constant connection, darkness can still hide in plain sight. And sometimes, it takes just one small piece of evidence to bring it all into the light.